Hello, everyone. Rich Carlton here. Welcome to Thursday. I've had way too much caffeine today. It's a problem. Sir, we're going to have to ask you to pull over. Driver's license and registration. How much caffeine have you had today? All right. Today we have Jonathan Ray on deck. It's going to be an awesome day. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where we create really awesome FileMaker training. We do it every day. We also have some recorded content. We also have upcoming schedules. So let's cover a little bit of housekeeping before we start our conversation about FileMaker and WordPress. And it's a continuation of yesterday's conversation. It's going to be really awesome today. First off, if you go to FMTraining.tv, you'll see a website that looks a lot like this. It's kind of surprising. It's suspicious. It looks just like this. And so what we do is you can come down here and hit these tabs at the top of FMTraining.tv. If I can just go to FMTraining.tv, I'll do that real quick. Go to FM Training, click that, go away. I can come down here, you'll see FM Courses. You hit the live training button like that. How amazing, a little simulator action going on there. You come over here and you can see the upcoming schedule for the next 6 days. It's all driven out of FileMaker right here. We can look in here. I can see what's coming up for the next. We're booked all the way through the end of October, right? We got a request from one or more presidential campaigns. They wanted to attend and have a debate while we were doing about FileMaker, but they didn't know anything about FileMaker, so we had to turn them down, right? Because I didn't want to have to talk about other stuff. We're just limiting it to FileMaker, Claris, and anything vaguely related to that. So we're broadcasting in high definition to YouTube, Discord, and Twitch. I personally prefer Discord for most things unless it malfunctions. It's really cool because as I talk, there's about a half a second delay, so the Discord people can interact with me pretty much in real time. Have to remember that if you're on YouTube or Twitch, there's about a 90-second delay, so if you see me say something and you comment on it, I have to remember what I said 90 seconds ago. It's really easy for smart people. I am not, it's a secret, a very bright individual. As a result, I frequently forget what I said 90 seconds ago. So I have people like Jonathan here who help do a great job. So that's the upcoming schedule. We got Nick Hunter coming back next week starting Tuesday. Monday it'll be me and Miles Debsky having a little bit of fun. And then we'll let Nick pick it up. Additionally, if you want to help support the channel, we really appreciate all the lurkers and everyone else out there purchasing our training. We have a complete training bundle here. We have a couple different options. If you want a coupon or discount, feel free to email us at support. In fact, if you have any questions, comments, you want a discount for this training, email us. We'll send you the discount for that. It's support at rcconsulting.com. We'll get you that information. So this is a complete training bundle, which includes FileMaker Pro 19, Mac and Windows. This one right here is only the video training. So there's a difference in these bundles. There's some other differences. You can click on them, drill down, learn about it. But we appreciate each and every one of you supporting the channel. We really do. Cool. So let's dive over. I'm going to jump over to Jonathan Ray. Jonathan Ray is a certified FileMaker engineer. He's been around for a long time. Jay, you want to show your screen and unmute yourself? It'd be fantastic. Wave to everyone. Say hi.
Hey, hey.
Oh, wrong one. You got to show your face.
What?
Your face.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen without.
Yeah, you jumped ahead. You have to share your face. Just Jonathan. Okay. He's fantastic senior engineer. Really great guy. Does a lot of awesome work and does a lot of customer projects. So if you're, some of you are probably here. Jonathan either has or is working on your stuff right now. So pretty neat conversation. So what are we doing today, Jay?
So we're going to jump right in. I want to review a little bit about what we discussed yesterday. And so I have my my little slideshow. I'm just going to go through the first two slides here. So we're talking about FileMaker and WordPress. And the reason we're even talking about this is WordPress is a very popular web framework. And there are a lot of advantages of hooking WordPress up with FileMaker. But the question is how to do this. One way of doing this is through ODBC. And it was a good training exercise yesterday to go through and discuss what ODBC was in the first place and how you can use it, not just with WordPress, but with other SQL sources, Oracle sources, that type of thing, in general. So we talked almost all of yesterday just about ODBC, how to get a table into FileMaker, how to interact with the data, all that sort of thing. Today, we're going to be focusing in on the WordPress aspect of this. And so what is WordPress? WordPress, why should we care about it? Number one, let's go here. WordPress is powering 35% of all the websites on the web right now, which is just an incredible statistic. More than 1.1 million new registered WordPress domains every 6 months. And if you don't know already, WordPress is free to install. So if you have a brand new website and you're trying to build a website for your company, you could install WordPress for free, then go out there and find a template to start out with. There's tens and tens of thousands of templates. You find one that fits closest to what you're going for, modify that, and you have kind of a add water and mix type of website really quick. And just before we continue on here, I've set up WordPress sites for friends and family, their businesses. One WordPress site I set up was done like beginning to end in 2 hours in a Starbucks, right? I mean, that's how fast you can do this type of thing. And he's using the site to this day. It's a simple one, but it's 5 pages, has all the stuff that he needs, and people can get a hold of him through a contact form. So it's rapid development website work. There are currently 54,000 free plugins. So a plugin is something that WordPress doesn't do out of the box. You add to it. One of the plugins that we're demoing today is called WooCommerce, and it is a full-blown e-commerce system with the add to cart and inventory levels and checkout and credit card processing, the whole 9 yards, and you don't pay a penny for it. It's quite something. But there's 54,000 of them out there. WordPress is also behind almost a third of all the top 1,000 websites. So they're not just for simple bloggers or really small businesses. It can handle a lot. It can handle a lot of traffic. So I was pretty surprised. I mean, there's several Fortune 500 and 100 companies using WordPress as the backend. Okay, so from there, I'm going to exit out of here, and we're going to take a look at how WordPress is.
Why don't you show us your shopping cart? Let's just start with that. Okay.
Yeah,
Because we need that link anyway, because we're going to give everyone the FileMaker sample file today, and one of the things I want to do is put the link on it. And so hopefully my junior guys are watching. I don't know if they're there. They're being very stealthy. They never say much. And so if they're here watching, we want to put a button at the top of the page so people know how to get to this website right here. And we're going to want this, Jay, strategically, we're going to want this to kind of continue to function. So we can use this as kind of a point. We don't want to get rid of this. I know it's attached to a server. We have to probably have a conversation about that. But I think having this up and running, kind of like for those of you wondering, I'm going to interrupt just briefly here, but when we do really cool technology and demo it, a lot of times we will leave the demos running. So for those of you remembering the synchronization, the server replication synchronization technology we had, Jesse Barnum 360 Works, we had 5 servers around the world. We've actually nibbled that down to, I think, 3 servers around the world. And it cost me on a minimum server kind of setup and replication around the world, it's actually cost me about $100 a month to maintain that. So if you need to do a demo or see a demo of server replication, email me at SupportRC Consulting, because we still have that thing running. It's not really necessarily publicly accessible. You have to have a password for it, I believe. But it was so cool we had to leave it running. I think this is one of those that's so cool I want to leave it running because that would be really useful. So Jay, I'm going to try to find you. I'm trying to figure out how do I get you back here? There we go. Jay's back. Okay, good. So yeah, so this is it. So Jay, you want to just kind of go through a quick shopping moment here with us? Okay, you're muted.
So this website was built from a free template, and then I just adapted it, and all this stuff is just placeholder data, of course, but it demonstrates the e-commerce system. So the plugin WooCommerce is driving all the shopping cart features behind this, right? So we're going to do a quick order. We're going to buy this watch like we did yesterday. And I'll go to my cart. And we're going to just proceed to checkout.
Coupon codes, got all the widgets, all the things that you would want to have with it. Very, very cool.
And then you would have to, fill this whole thing out. I'm just going to, fill the whole thing out with, and we're not going to process a credit card, but then what am I doing here?
You got to check out required bill. Did it not take it? 1, 2,
3, 4 Main Street. There we go. Phone number. Okay, I see.
Oh, is that what is it? Yeah.
555 5555. Okay, and my email. Let's just do that, and then place order.
Now, does it actually? Did it? Oops, sorry. Excuse me. Did it actually send a confirmation email to you? I mean, it should have, right? Part of the WooCommerce thing. Does it do that?
Yeah. I don't have this set up for the email yet, but that's exactly what would happen if I set those
So the
settings
customer
up.
would get an email saying, "Hey, we're going to ship it," and then in FileMaker we would see this order, right?
Right. So here's the next step here. I'm going to go into FileMaker, and I'm going to go over to invoices just so you see that there are 8 records here right now. When I hit sync WordPress, so in that split second, we got our new record. We now have 9. And it pulled over our product. Okay, it says it's a web order. It's on hold because I checked that it was a check payment. Here's my info, right? Here's my total, and so forth. Now we're going to go back in here, and with WordPress sites, it's a WordPress site if you go here after the domain, if you put /wp-admin, and it brings you to this this screen, you have a WordPress site operating in the background. Sometimes I'll be on a site and I just kind of get the impression that it's a WordPress site, and I just check it and I put wp-admin, and sure enough, it takes me here.
Okay. Before you dive in there, I'm going to interrupt. We did a question here. So Mr. Bunny from the Netherlands asked a question. And there's a lot of lurkers here. If you're lurking, you have a question, please ask the question, and we'll answer it. So the question was, does it work with Shopify and BigCommerce? So the answer is, yeah, you can set all this stuff up. It's FileMaker just out of, like, if you open it up, doesn't, for starters, FileMaker just out of the box doesn't have a CRM, but we provide a free CRM for people. Let me just adjust the screen here a little bit. We do provide a free CRM FM starting point. And so that solves a lot of people's problems. Then they say, well, I want to connect it to this or that, the other thing. And so that's what Jonathan, if you look at this file over here, this FileMaker file that's right over here, this is a copy of FM starting point. So it's a CRM that's already free, it's already built. All we needed to do was really kind of wire in the synchronization a little bit, and that's kind of we discussed part of this yesterday. Today we're going to kind of continue and finish the conversation. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. But the fact that we're using WooCommerce versus Shopify versus BigCommerce versus whatever other systems that are out there, you could even have it where Amazon sells your product on Amazon, and then through an API, you can get the updated order information from Amazon. It's all doable. It's just a matter you have to get it wired up. It's not necessarily for a brand new beginner to do. I think, Bunny, you would have a hard time with that. But if you have a fairly skilled intermediate developer or a senior level developer, a senior level developer should absolutely be able to do this. If they are a true senior developer, it's just the way that is. Claris may offer Shopify Connect. Yeah, they very well may be. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a Claris Connect broadcast. So in this case, we're not using Claris Connect. We wired our own setup up. And Jay, to wire this up, it took you, 20 hours or something like that, thereabouts, to do that?
It took 20 hours, and that includes the website creation, right? So creating the website took about 15, and then doing the sync itself took about 5.
Now, this sync just brings orders down, and allows us to change the status. Jay was in the process of changing the status here to update and push the status up. If you were going to really wire it up, you'd probably also wire up the products. So as you added products in here, it would push those up to the e-commerce as well, and also product inventory levels. Like if you have, items that typically go in and out of availability, right? Like a gas station, most gas stations don't run out of gas, for example, right? Most coffee shops don't run out of cups for coffee. So you don't really worry about inventory on that. But if you're selling big screen 100-inch TVs, for example, and you have 25 of them in inventory, you don't want to sell 35 because there's going to be 10 people are going to be pissed off that they didn't get what they paid for. So inventory becomes an issue. We do have inventory controls down here. And that's already in our free CRM. So we've already built a lot of this. What we're doing is talking about taking your own solution or taking our free CRM and extending it into whatever shopping cart. So to answer the question. So, and then 2 weeks we are going to do Claire's Connect, talk about that and look at some of the things with that. That'll be a Calvin Moseyman conversation in 2 weeks. But between here and there, we won't be talking about Connect too much. That'll be a Calvin conversation. So questions, you can, Oregon Dean's asking a question. We'll let him finish that. Go ahead and continue, Jay.
So to be clear too, we're not just talking about e-commerce systems. We're using that as an example, but because there are tens of thousands of WordPress plugins, you can retrieve all sorts of data from your WordPress site. So if you have an online booking system for events, you could pull all of the guest information and event information to see if your registers or attendees have paid and so forth. You can manage
registrants.
There we go. Yeah, and you can manage all of that from FileMaker. You can bring in all of your email contact us forms into FileMaker, all of that sort of thing. So we're just looking at e-commerce, but this, what I'm going to show you with how to set up a sync, it applies to all that sort of thing too. Okay, we're going to come over here, and in the background, we're going to log into our WordPress, and this is what WordPress looks like in the background. Okay, on your left-hand side are all the pages. These are your HTML pages, and you can click on one and start editing the stuff in there and that type of thing. What we want to look at is the WooCommerce. So this could be Shopify, same type of concept. I'm going to look at the orders, and this is the one I just did. It says 7 minutes ago. And you can see that it has on hold. I'll click on this, and this is the status on hold. So if I come back into FileMaker, say this person came and they picked up their order and they paid with cash. Now I want to tell my WooCommerce orders that it has been handled. Okay, it's done. So I'll put here completed. All right, and in that split second, FileMaker just told this order sitting in the SQL database that's behind WordPress that this was now completed. So if I refresh, you can see the status changed. So right there, you have a two-way sync, a very basic sync, but a two-way sync, pulling in the orders, pushing up updates to the orders from FileMaker. All right. Again, this is an example of one plugin. You can do it with many others. I'm going to, from here, show you how to set up a SQL user in the SQL database. This is a little bit, this is the most complicated part of the whole discussion. So before I do that, do we want to pause there, boss?
Oh, I've been asking people for questions, and so Oregon Dean posted some information about WooCommerce and using REST API and webhooks. We have built this. Connecting with the ODBC was part of the conversation yesterday, which is different than a REST API and webhooks. I think if you were going to build it from scratch today, from scratch, like brand new, you'd probably do that. Jonathan actually is pretty comfortable using ODBC and ESS, and it's got some benefits to it. I think you can go either way. I think the REST API is a little bit newer technology. We talked about that, but basically, Organdine posted some documentation that the WooCommerce people have on going through the REST API process to interact with it. So Ken Tooley says, so the data from WordPress is a button sync, but two-way WordPress is automatic or some trigger. Yeah, it's a script, Ken. You have to, basically, we talked about this yesterday, but the data from WooCommerce is live in a table, right? So if you can just bring up the table, bring up the relational diagram there for me.
Oh, okay.
And so this is very simple. If you go to the relationships here, these are tables here that are, all this stuff is basically live. This stuff is all live to, it's in WordPress live. And so as we're interacting with FileMaker, we typically interact over here, and then we have a script that will talk between this table section here and this over here. So there's this data that's kind of coming this way or back this way. That has to be a script. It's scripted. You could actually display this data directly and interact with it directly. I think there's some negatives to that, structurally negative. So what we do is we have it here, then we do a sync back and forth between these two. Has to be scripted. So however you activate a script, that's a totally separate conversation. All of you know that you can do it probably at 50 different ways. And even if you thought you knew every way, then Nick would come and show up and show us 3 ways that you never heard of before. So that's how the data is synchronized. It's a button push, it's a trigger, it could be an on, first file open. There's 100 different ways of doing it. That's the answer to that question. Michael Gravel says, has WordPress to be hosted on the same machine as FileMaker server? Jay, you want to handle that one?
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be on the same machine. It can be, I guess. In this case, it's not, and it, could be. Doesn't need to be. But that's a good segue into exactly what I'm going to show next, and that is, in order for WordPress to even allow its data to be retrieved from FileMaker, we have to set up a user and allow access to that data. So wherever the WordPress installation is, whether it's on the same server as your FileMaker database, or it's hosted by, in this case, Bluehost, or what is that Gator host? I forget what that is, or GoDaddy, or whoever you use, they all have a similarity in that they have cPanel. Okay, so when you log in to your web hosting interface, your portal, they allow you to manage the all sorts of settings. Okay, so I'm going to drop into cPanel, a test website here, and you have all sorts of different confusing options. Okay, but the one that you're looking for is MySQL databases. Remember that when you install WordPress, it automatically creates a set of MySQL databases. MySQL runs WordPress in the background. Even though you may not know it, every single post that you do, every action that triggers something gets stored in a database in WordPress's background. So I'm going to click on MySQL databases, and I need to set up a new user. Right now, by default, the template that I chose installed 2 databases by default. Okay, and I want a user to be created. Let's see here. I'll add a new user. Let's just call this ODBC. Okay, and then the password, I'm going to generate just some random password here, just for our purposes. Okay, and then I create the user. Okay, go back. I create the user, And then this user down here, where is it? Okay, and then the last step, after creating the user, you have to add the user to the database. So I click my user that I just created, ODBC, and I wanted to add it to, say, this database here, that to both of them eventually. I'll hit add, and then it says, what privileges do you want this user to have? And this is key. If I hit all privileges, that's going to allow me to do everything FileMaker needs to do. FileMaker needs to be able to delete records. It needs to be able to read them and so forth. These are all SQL commands. So I want to give this user, quote unquote, all the privileges. This is my ODBC user. Make changes. Okay, now I've done everything I need to do on my website to set up the ODBC connection. And where you use that is what we discussed in our video yesterday. In the ODBC manager on a Mac, the same type of thing on a Windows, this is where you would set up your user. So I'm just going to click on one that I've set up beforehand, and I'll go through this. You can name it whatever you'd like. You select MySQL, and then this is the IP that that your WordPress site is on. I'll get back to that in a second, but that needs to be there. And then, or you can type in the domain as well. That'll work. The port is always going to be 3306. Okay, and then you come here and say this would be your user, so whatever it was, and then your password. So that's the user that you set up from cPanel. You're now putting it right here. That's where that goes. Okay, and if I hit continue, then if I put in my user and password, it would then display the list of databases that are available to me. I would select the one that is for WordPress, hit continue, and that's it. So you'd need to look at that video that we did yesterday to detail here, but just know that that's where that user credentials is even coming from. You set it up from cPanel, you punch it in here, and then FileMaker can connect to it. That's how that works. I want to go back one place here. This IP is very important. So if you have a standard WordPress installation on something like Bluehost or GoDaddy, you're not going to get a static IP by default. This IP in a month on this website here, if I'm not paying for a static IP, it could change on me overnight and it just won't work. Okay, so it has to be a static IP in order for this to work altogether. Bluehost charges, I think, $7 a month extra for a static IP. Same type of thing for GoDaddy, I'm sure. But that's what needs to happen in order to connect to it. It has to be stable in that way. Okay, that's how you set up that user. From there, boss, do we want to review any of the ODBC stuff from yesterday to kind of refresh people's memories, or should I go into the sync script now?
I would do the sync script, but I do it. So NetLobster is asking about. She's asking about, and tomorrow, NetLobster. I don't know if you missed this or saw this. We're definitely going to be showing off your file tomorrow. So definitely thank you for sending us a sample cool file. She's saying that 12 years or so ago they were having a problem with ODBC. Obviously, I think they fixed that. I haven't heard about it. That was about the time I did the DevCon broadcast, or did DevCon where I presented on ODBC. So I seem to have missed seeing that. So if it's in the request 4 times, then yeah, I think that's been resolved one way or the other. So I don't think that's a current issue. Benedict Miller says, can you use a host name rather than IP? Yeah. So you can use a DNS entry or whatever. I think most places you would use a DNS entry. We set this up on Amazon, so we had to pay. It's a server that we're paying on a per month basis or whatever we're doing. We also have to pay for what they call an elastic IP. It's Amazon's way of saying it's a static IP. Um, it's an
Yeah,
IP.
that brings up an important point. I just showed you how to do it on Bluehost through cPanel, but the way we're doing it right here, we didn't set it up through cPanel at all. For people that can set up an Amazon server, you can set up a user in a different way. It's just a little bit more complicated.
Oh, is that the IAM
Yeah,
process?
that's what Jacob did.
Identity access and management, I think, is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I went through tried to get Amazon certified, and actually just even the process of trying to become Amazon certified, I learned a ton, and I ended up, to be honest with you, losing interest because I have a very diverse skill set, and even outside the world of FileMaker, I got skills in all sorts of stuff. You guys can probably guess what that's about, and as a result of that, I was like, do I really want to beat my head and keep trying to get certified? So, but just even going through the process of learning the basics of getting Amazon certified, I have other guys here at my company who are either, but they, Moki's asking how much does a static IP cost? So once again, a static IP, but they really call it an elastic IP, which means it's assigned to you, but elastically it goes wherever your server goes on Amazon. So if you move the server around or they move the server, it kind of goes with the server. So it elastically moves even though it's static. I don't know how much that is per month, Jay. Do you remember the bullet point cost?
So there's a trade-off here. For our little demo, I was going to just pay whatever it was for our Bluehost thing because it was $7 a month, but they charge at least a year. You have to pay all 12 months in advance. And so instead of paying $84 or something, we chose to do it on Amazon, which bills us monthly, I believe, like $5 or $6 or something for that elastic IP.
Yeah.
And so whenever we close down this site, we don't have to worry about wasting money.
Although ideally, I would love to leave this running. Would be useful. So we'll see if we can. Yeah. No guarantees, but we'll try to work on that.
So the idea here is that we have data from our WordPress SQL database. There's several different tables. When we book an order, the way WooCommerce is set up, they have several tables. Let me kind of show you what's going on here. If I do a new table occurrence and I go to my ODBC source, this is WordPress. These are all the tables I have to choose from. And it's kind of overwhelming. You're like, man, well, where's the order data? I want to just grab my orders. Where's all that stuff? And you see down at the bottom, here are all the WooCommerce tables. All right. So we're particularly interested in the WooCommerce tables, but even then, there's several different tables that they have. The trick is knowing where that order information is stored and how to retrieve it. So the big ones are order items, order item meta, and then where's the other one? And then WP posts up here and WP post meta. All right, because of the way the table structure is set up in the background that we have no control over. This is the way WooCommerce sets things up. It's not really possible to have a one-to-one setup from my FileMaker database pulling all of the information from WooCommerce without a sync. Because, normally you wouldn't have a FileMaker database set up with order items and order items meta. We just don't set things up like that. Okay, and so we're not accessing in invoices. This isn't the live data from SQL, right? This is the live data from SQL. It's all kind of buried in here in the WordPress SQL tables, right? So you have to figure out how to find the stuff that you're looking for. Here in the WP posts table, if I do a find on all of let's just show all records here. There's 133. So anytime you do some sort of post in WordPress, it creates a new record here. Well, the ones that I'm interested in, the only ones I'm interested in are the ones called, where is it? Shop order, shop underscore order. And you can see I've put 9 orders in altogether. And so I have to go and look for the most recent orders, the ones that I haven't pulled over yet. And then I'm going to several other tables, collecting all the necessary information for that order, coming back to invoices, and then creating them. You see? So I'm not, this layout is not from the WP orders table. I'm not pulling directly from that SQL source. This is a local FileMaker table, and then the sync is going to the ESS SQL source, finding the information we want, storing it, coming back to invoices, and creating it. All right. And then when I want to post an update, if I want to change the status, for instance, of the order, then on a script trigger attached to this field, this script trigger will look and say, okay, let's get the necessary info from this invoice in order to identify the order we're looking for. And then it will go to the orders into the correct table, find the status, right? It'll find this specific record here, and then change the status to whatever I put, for instance, completed. All right. So I can just do this right now. If I go to record number 9, which is the one that we just had, and I put pending or something, okay? In the background, a script trigger triggered a script, and we can come back here, and you can see it changed it to pending. So that script, all it did is it found the correct record and changed a particular field to a particular status. And so the trick of working with WordPress is knowing where those fields are and what fields need to change. So you have to, for every plugin, it's going to be a little bit different. So knowing that, I'm going to jump in to some of the specifics about this plugin, this WooCommerce plugin, and show you how a general sync would work. Okay. First of all, in preferences, I have set up, where is it? WordPress. I added a little tab here. And this is helpful in any sync that you do. It doesn't have to be related just to syncing with WordPress, but you want to store somewhere the last time that you ran the sync, right? Otherwise, you would have to pull all of the data and come in, and like you would have to go to invoices, delete all the data, then come over here and store all the data, then go to invoices and create all the data all over again. You certainly don't want to do that. All we want to do is grab all of the orders that have been changed or created since the last time we synced, right? So anytime that we run the sync process, we click the button to run it. After it successfully completes, it'll put that timestamp right there. This is the last time we ran it. You have to be a little bit careful about the time zone thing. And in this case, it's taking into account the time offset. It depends on where your website is hosted, what kind of time zone they're using. Okay, so over here, you can see that this is the order we just did at the beginning of the broadcast, and it put in today's date and a little after 12. And so I know that's Pacific time, okay? But say I have a user that ran this on the East Coast and they're 3 hours ahead, you don't want to use their timestamp to check for it because they'd be 3 hours off. And so here in the sync, I'm using Universal Standard Time or Greenwich something time. I forget what that's called, but it helps get everyone on the same page. So no matter where you're at, you're always operating with the same type of timestamp and finding the records you need to. All right. So that takes care of talking about setting a timestamp before you do a WordPress sync. And then I'm going to pull up the script that runs this button here. In the file that we're going to give you, of course, the file is not going to work, right? Because you don't have the external data source set up on your computer, right? But everything else will be here, like this script. And if you hooked it up to your own WooCommerce website and you installed the ODBC driver, came over here and changed this entry to your own thing, then it would technically work, okay? But what I did here in this file that you can take a look at later, I've created two different versions of the sync script. This first one is easier to understand, but it's longer. I mean, it's 227 lines of code. The second one over here is shorter. It's 133 lines of code, but it's a little bit more complicated in how it gets the data. I'm going to show you just the first one because I think we can digest that a little bit more and understand what it's doing. Okay, so first of all, it opens up a new window that it's almost like a dialog window that says sync, right? It goes to the preferences layout, which is right here, okay? And then it shows all records and it grabs, here's the part that we just discussed about the timestamp. It finds when the last time the script was run. And that's very important because we're going to find all the orders that are greater than that time. So anything after this time, we're going to find and update our invoices, okay? And then here, this is a very important thing too. This is what I call the session ID, okay? So any changes that we make, we're going to set with a session ID. Any changes that we make in invoices, we're going to set with a session ID. And then at the very end of this whole script, it goes to the invoices and finds all of the records that we just modified, okay? And so at the end here, you remember when we did the sync script at the beginning, we synced and then it showed you only that one record that we retrieved instead of all the records. We want to leave the person that ran this script with a found set of just the records that they modified. And that's why we're doing this session ID thing here. So we're setting it at the very beginning and then finding all of the records that have that session ID at the very end using a UUID. So from here at the very beginning of the script, we set the last WordPress sync with the current time. All right. So we know when the last time we ran the sync was. So every time we run the sync, it'll update that field and say, this is the last time we ran the sync. And again, this little plus time thing here allows us to be on the same page with all our users. Okay. We commit the record. Then we go to WP posts. That is the table that comes with all WordPress installations. Every single WordPress installation will have this table called WP_posts if you bring it over. And every action that you do, say you create a new page on your WordPress site, it'll create a record that indicates you created a new page on such and such date. This is the last time it was modified, and it will have different bits of information for you. Okay, the only ones that we're interested in as far as this sync goes, you see here like page. So there was an update to this particular page on this date etc. But the only ones we're interested in are the shop orders down here. And so we're um, going to this layout in this script. And then this is very, very important, this refresh window here, okay? Just by going to the layout doesn't actually retrieve all of the new data, right? So I have 133 records right now. If someone went on and did an order online on our dummy site, it won't show 134. And I can leave it here for 2 days. It still won't show any more than 133 until I refresh the window. So that's what you have to do in order to retrieve the last batch of changes. And these two options should be checked here. And I believe it's the second one that is the most important. The first one might be able to be unchecked, but I just did it to be safe. But this is very important. You will retrieve no changes unless the refresh window happens there. Then from there, once we're in our WP posts table, then it does a find, or it does a find on all of the on the modified timestamp field, which is right here, okay? And it does a find like this. We'll just do it manually. It's greater than, and then let's insert current time. It's greater than whatever timestamp we collected at the beginning of the script. That was the last sync. So we want to find all records that happened after the last sync. So let's just, to find some records, let's go 930 and I'll hit enter. And it shows you 4 records have been modified or created since the last time we ran the sync. So we're limiting our current found set. If there's none, if get last error equals 0, then it goes all the way down here and it doesn't do any sync at all. Basically, it just kind of returns you to the invoice layout. Pretty straightforward there. So it finds all of the records that have changed since the last time we ran the sync, and it limits it further to the post type that is shop that is shop order. That's what WooCommerce puts in their post record. Okay, that's what we're looking for there. So anytime I do an order with WooCommerce, it'll put this this post type in the new record. So we found that, and then if we found any records at all, then it starts the loop. And this loop you can kind of reverse engineer on your own. Again, this one is the easy way of doing the sync. This other one, Rev2 here, condenses it more, but it might be a little bit more difficult to understand how we're doing it. So maybe just take apart this one. First, it goes to the posts table, and it starts collecting some information, or it starts creating necessary invoice records if they aren't already created. So I have a relationship set up here between my posts here, WP posts, and my invoices table. And the relationship is set up where I have a WP underscore post ID in invoices, and the ID of the post, that's the matching criterion. And because this is checked here, allow creation of records, in the script, what this does is it allows me to create and or update the invoice records through a relationship without going to that invoice layout. So I can stay in my posts layout and create or modify the invoice records one by one and it will create invoice records if they aren't already created with that post ID. So it sets the status, it sets the date it was due. The date invoice is the date that the post was made. The order timestamp is the timestamp the order was made. And so this whole loop right here, what this would do if it found all 4 records, it would either update or create my master parent invoice records, right? And it would set the basic data, like the date it was created, the status, and that type of thing. This is not creating the actual line items, just the parent invoice from here. And using that relationship with the allow creation checkbox checked, I don't have to go here and do a go to layout, go to invoices. I can create or modify them from my current context in the ESS table. And that's a good little trick just to know.
Right. Real quick, so Mookie asked the question, hey, can I use SQL in order to avoid doing this other stuff? So it's important to understand the answer to all of Mookie's questions is that there's more than one way to code most anything in FileMaker. And so basically the short version of it is that you can use execute SQL to, remember, SQL is a data finding and retrieving function. And FileMaker has to convert. It's not necessarily a faster function. As opposed to going to the layout and getting the data, you'd have to time it to see which one is faster. And so once again, I want to discourage the thought process that using SQL statements in FileMaker somehow makes things faster. Generally, pound for pound, it is slower because it has to translate in and out of that. Where the execute SQL is useful, I'm going to go ahead and split screens here a little bit. Where it's useful, hang on one second, let me do the service. We have this. Where it can be useful is a situation where you can arbitrarily create a relationship that doesn't really exist, relate the data, create the data, filter the data, massage the data, bring it over, and then abstract that out into FileMaker somehow without having to actually create the relationships. If you're doing something like that, it can be faster, right? But I don't know that's necessarily what we're doing here. The other question is could we use some alternate import strategies and things like that to speed this process? Okay. Once again, it's kind of a lean design question. I'm just going to ask you to scroll down here to your loop right here. So, Jay, if I was busy getting the demo file ready, which the demo file is now available. This file is now available. I'll post a link as soon as I get done dealing with the Mookie questions. Right. So, we've got this loop that's running right here. You already do a find set in here of the items that need to be moved. Did you somehow they're new or something like that? Did you do a find set to narrow the found set down? Or are you processing?
Yep. So that's the part we discussed just a moment ago. You find everything that's been changed since the last time you ran
So the reason you wouldn't want to run a loop is because the loop pound for pound is going to be slower, except that we discussed this yesterday. If your business is taking thousands of orders a day, you shouldn't be running that thousands of orders a day through WooCommerce. You should not be running that through an ODBC and ESS connection. You could do it through a data API. You could scale that way. But doing thousands of orders, right? So the question is, if you're doing 20, 50, 100, 200, 300 orders a day, how long does it take you to have a loop like this run? If it runs 5 times a day or 10 times a day and it does 5 records or 10 records each time it does the loop, are you going to save anything by using Nick's lean design?
Yeah, it'll save you maybe a second and a half.
A couple seconds. The reason that we build it this way is because it's easier to mentally articulate and to train people on how to do it. So once again, if I was trying to confuse that everyone, I could do this. I could put lean design in it. I could throw in some Todd Guy selector connector, their pants, and then run away. So the goal is not to make everyone lose their minds in the broadcast. Very good. So we limit the complexity to what we're focused on. So we dumb it. I'm dumbing this down as low as possible.
And that's why I created 2 separate versions of this script. This is the one that you can look at it and understand right away what's going on. I'm going to a table. I'm finding stuff I need. and I'm setting fields.
Yeah.
This other one, Rev 2, is more complex, but it's less lines in the script. And if you're not for the faint of heart, you can reverse engineer that.
And then if we wanted to go in beyond that, we could do Nick and have Nick Lean design this one down, and then whatever. So,
but what's the payoff is the question. And
yeah, well,
if you're only saving a couple seconds, then
if people watch our training and then they immediately feel like they need to call the suicide hotline, then that's the bad training scenario, and we don't like that. So that's Mookie gets that. That's good. Conversation, Organ Dean. This scripted approach is near real time, not real time. Best case is running this script every minute, right? I wouldn't run it every minute. I mean, unless you're operation. Listen, there is a thing where you can run a script so often in FileMaker, you run into the potential running into memory leaks with FileMaker. For example, let me give you a practical example here. So RCC, when we bill, about half the customers we bill, they pay with PayPal, with a credit card, or whatever they pay with, okay? And so we create invoices at RCC. Once an hour, we have a robot that runs, and it does a loop because we try to keep it simple. I'm not worried about the robot doing it as fast as possible. I'm more interested in that people who look at it, who maintain it, can understand it, right? And so the robot runs once an hour. So if someone pays me, and the worst case scenario is that 49 minutes elapses and then I find out about the order, that's not the end of the world. If you're Amazon and you're trying to ship stuff right up to the last second, maybe you run it every 5 minutes or every 60 seconds or something like that. But if you run it too often, you run in the risk of we've actually had customers who'd run like SASE or PSOS scripts, and they would start the next script running before the previous one had finished. So you got to watch out for that. So that's an Organ Dean kind of conversation with that.
And the Amazon thing, I just set up an Amazon API retrieval process for a guy who does an Amazon online store. And so far in the last 5 or 6 months, he's retrieved 166,000 orders. And using that API, we set the schedule to run every 15 minutes. And
Perfect.
For him, it's totally fine. You know, he didn't need it to be less than that. It'd be hard to imagine a place where you'd have to get, more.
Well, Amazon. But if you're Amazon, you should. We're not. I mean, once again, I mean,
sure.
I mean, it's an interesting intellectual conversation. Like, how far can you stretch FileMaker? Right? Remember what I said yesterday? If you found 100 things, if you found a fixed number of things in the world that you needed to solve in a business process, you had 100 items to solve. FileMaker would solve 85 of them. You can hack it to solve another 5 or 6, and there's about 7, 8, or 9 of those 100 items that you should not use FileMaker for, because it's not the right tool. It's not. If FileMaker is the only tool in your arsenal, then you'll try to solve every problem with it. But there are times where a legit SQL database with legit expensive SQL developers is an appropriate use of the technology, and it's not good for FileMaker. So I'm not here to tell people, I get people on the phone say, hey, we're going to have 100,000 records a day and this and that and the other thing, and it's going to combine, and it'll be exponential growth, and I'll have 5,000 people using it simultaneously. I look at it objectively, saying, hey, you need to, if you're calling me because you're trying to save money because the Oracle guys are too expensive, you probably don't have a business model that can. If you're doing those kinds of orders, you should have the money to pay for a robust system, right? Not trying to buy a 5-pack of FileMaker with the smallest Amazon server to solve the problem. So, there's conversation with Organ Dean. We're talking about back office process. We're not talking about email confirmation to the customer. The customer gets it automatically from SQL. We're talking about back office fulfillment, and Organ Dean nailed that perfectly. So it's a question about back office fulfillment, right? Absolutely. And then M. Johnson, who's been historically pretty quiet lately, has decided to surface. He's typing. I use execute SQL in FileMaker and maybe the employee ID, but that's all I'm getting. So no need to create relationship for that. I do have a script that about 15 or so variables that are using separate SQL statements for each variable that runs pretty fast, but the script is ran manually by the user. When that person needs to get different counts for work orders to do in the relationships, I'd have to do a ton of relationships and calc fields, and would cause performance for that's right. Yeah. So once again, M. Johnson's making the point that the real benefit to the execute SQL statement is that in the execute SQL statement, you can temporarily create a bridge or create a relationship. You construct it in that statement, and then while that statement is executing, that relationship exists, kind of like a TO exists in the system, or the TOs exist, but you create a relationship between them. And then as soon as that SQL statement is done, it disassembles the bridge. So it builds a bridge, does the stuff, then disassembles the bridge. FileMaker natively doesn't have that, so that's where that becomes really super useful. So that's a good point on that. Ned Lobster, the more new orders, the longer it takes, so you can't predict how long it will take until you run again, tracking time, and track the timing and adjust your schedule for worst case. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, once again, I think that unless you're processing, if you had more than 500 orders in an hour, I would start to look at this more objectively in terms of performance. Anything below 500 orders an hour, I'm not worried if FileMaker will do it. So
yeah, I mean, even so, if you have 500 orders in the last hour, you might be talking, instead of a second and a half, all of 6 seconds, 5 seconds.
Yeah, but listen, if you have, we're back to the conversation. If you have 500 orders an hour, you need to be using the appropriate technology. You wouldn't even have it tied to the user's machine. It would be tied to a robot or some other process, PSOS process or something like that. It should not be even running on the user's machine, because if you've got that many orders, you have a whole team of people that are running around fulfilling this stuff, and it's quite a large operation with big money moving around, right? I mean, unless you're selling $1 orders every hour, right? So, but most orders are going to be whatever size, whatever margin. That's a lot of boxes to packages to ship out. So,
going more into this, I don't think would be overly beneficial. All we're trying to say on the broad level is that we are retrieving all the orders and order items that were changed or created from the last time we ran the sync. And then after it's done finding all the stuff that it needs to find in the various tables and from WordPress, then it creates them, it updates the invoices and the invoice line items as needed, and then closes the window for you, leaving you with your found set of invoice records that have been changed. And that's as easy as I can put it.
Okay, so Mookie just said something here. Import WP table to local table. Oh, you asked a question. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, but okay. Well, I thought I addressed that, right? So,
yeah,
yes, you could.
More complicated though. When it comes to WordPress, their records are of different types, right? So you have like this post type shop order. There's only.
You're here. You're still here.
There's only 9 of those records that I even care about. So if I did an import, it would pull all 133 over to my new table, and then I'd have to delete the ones I don't need, and so forth. So even an import has some drawbacks to it.
Could you do a found set and limit it that way? I mean, you could do it, I guess. I don't play with ESS that much, mostly because I hate it, but that's just me. You're obviously much more comfortable with it than I am. So, but yeah, I mean, once again, this gets back into, I'll say this again. I mean, I was answering Mookie, but he only heard half of what I said, or she had, or half of what I said. So the issue is that there's more than one way to do this. And so we're doing it in a way that allows us to communicate the easiest to you. We're not saying this is the best method for deploying a Fortune 500 company, right? Okay. So mostly I'm trying to transfer the knowledge from here to there. So yeah, it's a lot of people here. So my job is to transfer the knowledge to you. I'm not telling you that the objective today wasn't to deploy e-commerce for a Fortune 500 to process 1,000 orders an hour and have it go as fast as possible. Because if that was the goal, then we can't do it in an hour. Okay, we'd have to have Jay in here for 3 or 4 days, and I have to have Nick in here for 4 or 5 days to tune it some more, and then all you folks would have to write a big check to cover the cost. So anyway, I would say click the upvote on the video, but I don't know where you'd upvote us here. Just click the upvote. Tell people about us. Let everyone know. If you're a lurker here and you're lurking, I'm looking at you lurker people in there. I see you on the internet. Don't forget to buy the training and support the channel. We really appreciate it. All right? Cool, everyone. See you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
puffed up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected, the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.